Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Southeast Termite and Pest Control. It's already starting to get humid out there, folks. You can beat the humidity and keep it out of your vents, protect your flooring, protect your subflooring. It cut down on that excess moisture. It also prevents mold and mildew. Southeast Termite and Pest Control can help you with all that. It's their crawl space encapsulation service. Give them a shout. They go all over the region. You'll find them. I mean, they're La Follette to Maryville all the way out into Jamestown. You can give them a shout, see if you're in their coverage area. They can help you. Not to mention the fact they just do a good job for me in terms of keeping pests out of my home. Southeast Termite and Pest Control, family owned, locally owned for 50 years since 1971. 51 years. I can't add. All right, let's quickly look at some numbers here. All right, if you just add up left-hand column, Power 5 games and Notre Dame. And I looked only at the next 8 years. I want to keep it even. So the next 8 years, some schedules are more filled out than others. Tennessee's isn't completely filled out, but still. Next 8 seasons, Power 5 and Notre Dame games. You see Georgia plays 20. At the bottom of the list, you see Tennessee with 8. True road games, and some of those are crossovers. So some of these true road games are also Power 5 games, but I wanted to add it up so you could see it. True road games, Georgia has 10, where you are actually in the other team's stadium, not neutral site, in their stadium. Tennessee has 2. Total, Georgia has 30 of those games. Florida, 29. Alabama, 21. South Carolina, if you're sitting there thinking, well, they're better than us. South Carolina's not better than you. South Carolina, Vanderbilt, they got 20 of those games, 17 of those games, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, you're looking down there at the bottom, you're saying LSU, Texas A&M, Kentucky, Auburn, they're in kind of our range. Well, let's compare those schedule to schedule, shall we? Let's just dig right into this. Let's look at Tennessee and LSU. Italics for the road games. Home games, no italics. Red are the teams that were on the schedule that may be moving into the conference, so we'll see if those games are staying. But Tennessee has at Pittsburgh over the next 8 years, at Pitt this year, Virginia and Nashville, Oklahoma here, Syracuse and Atlanta, at Nebraska that they inherited here. Well, I think they'll keep that because Nebraska sucks. Nebraska coming here. West Virginia, you play them in Charlotte again, and then Washington. So you got 8 Power 5, 2 on the road. LSU, you got 9 Power 5, 2 on the road, but look at the names. Florida State in New Orleans, Florida State and Orlando back-to-back years. That beats Virginia and Nashville, Syracuse and Atlanta to me. Army, I've highlighted that one because they haven't canceled that game yet. They're playing Southern Cal in Las Vegas. So while Tennessee says, well, we can have more fans in Nashville than in Utah, I'm guessing LSU could have more fans in Louisiana than Las Vegas, but they're still taking their fans to Las Vegas. It's a reward. USC, Clemson, at Clemson and Clemson at home, at Oklahoma, UCLA in there as well. All right, what about Texas A&M? They were down there like Tennessee. Look at these. Look at the Miami and at Miami. Notre Dame and at Notre Dame. Arizona State and at Arizona State. Louisville at Louisville. Those are, I mean, it's the same number. You got 2 more road games than Tennessee does, but Miami and Notre Dame and Arizona State, who Tennessee's never played, that's more interesting to me than a lot of those names on Tennessee's list. But just for contrast, let's see Florida. They were at the top end. Wider graphic because they had 3 columns worth of teams lined up. Look what they've got. Utah and at Utah is in blue. I point that out because Dan Mullen was there. Dan Mullen hadn't been at Utah, so he brought them in. I bring that up. Mississippi State and Mike Leach, he's already got home and home scheduled against Texas Tech and Washington State. Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss, home and home with Southern Cal. Has Tennessee lined up Gus Malzahn and UCF yet? I don't think so. I don't think they've gone there yet. Maybe they will. I'd be applauded if they did. But Florida is also playing some in-state danger teams that aren't necessarily Power 5. So some of these are on here, but we didn't count them in the Power 5 total. Tennessee isn't playing Memphis now that Memphis is good. You don't play Memphis. Florida has 1 year where they're playing Miami, UCF, and at Florida State in the same year. And for those who are saying, well, they've got Florida State built in. Yes, and they're not shirking away from Cal, NC State, Miami, Arizona State. Games of interest, games on the road. What about Tennessee and South Carolina? I mentioned them, a team that compares to Tennessee. They've got Clemson. If Tennessee had Clemson, I think Tennessee would just give you 3 Austin Peays and Clemson. South Carolina's giving you Clemson home and away year after year. They've also got Carolina at home, Carolina on the road, and Carolina at a neutral site in Charlotte. They got Virginia Tech in Atlanta. Again, like you not playing Memphis, they're playing Coastal Carolina. You lose that, that's embarrassing. Put Miami on the schedule. So you look at that. Let's take a look at Auburn. Similar to Tennessee, except at Cal, not great, but at Cal, you've been there, at Baylor, at UCLA, at Miami. If I'm a fan, that's interesting to me. I'm looking at some road trips. Arkansas, they're down with you. They're rebuilt. Well, wait. Cincinnati, who was in the playoffs last year. At BYU next year. They haven't canceled it. At Oklahoma State, they're playing Memphis. That's just like Tennessee playing Memphis. Arkansas playing Memphis. You lose some kids to Memphis if you don't beat them. They got Notre Dame home and away. They got Utah on there. They're playing some cool teams. And then let's look at Kentucky. This is where you are. This is what you're doing. This is what you're now doing. Kentucky plays Louisville, and they're like, that's all we need. That covers us. We got our Power 5. Good enough. Now get me Morehead State, Valdosta State, and the University of California at Oxnard on the phone. And they win 10 games and go to a bowl, and everybody applauds, and then we say, yeah, but they didn't beat anybody. Well, that's what Tennessee's doing. Is this the plan, do you think, schedule your way to 10 games? Danny White has talked since he got here about being progressive. Tennessee's always been progressive. We need to be progressive. I don't think he's scheduling very progressively, in my view. Does that change anyone's views of what you're saying? Does that open any eyes or anything?
No, yeah, go ahead.
No.
Oh, good. I'm glad I wasted 5 minutes doing that.
That was my answer. No, that's terrible. Go ahead.
It enhances it. It drives it home. Absolutely. I think Tennessee has been at the bottom of the league in scheduling non-conference for a long time. And because Danny White has done so many great things, I expected this part of it to kind of match that a little bit more. And it is not changed much. And if anything, you can say because some of the games they've gotten out of, that it hasn't gotten any better. It's gotten worse.
I'd be curious to know what his philosophy is on scheduling.
Well, I'm sitting here wondering how much of a bonus he may get based on Tennessee wins. He being the athletic director. I mean, does that come home to benefit him? It certainly doesn't benefit the fans. That's unacceptable. And the last thing I'd say, John, remember a few years ago in basketball, how they had to bring the coaches in and say, look, we have to schedule better. Athletic directors, you have to schedule better. I think they need to do the same thing with Tennessee and some others and say.
No, what others? Tennessee and Kentucky, I guess.
Yeah, I know, but it really comes back. If we're the best, we play anybody. If this is the best conference, why are we backing out of games?
Yeah, that's the third back out for Tennessee in the last decade. North Carolina, Army, and now BYU. That's not the Tennessee I grew up with. And if you say, well, because we're losing now and you got to schedule your way up and we got to protect our coach, nobody else is doing that. South Carolina isn't doing that.
Yeah, I mean,
and when they cancel, we'll point it out. And if Tennessee goes out and lines up some studs and they put them on the schedule tomorrow, I will be here singing their praises and applauding it. But for now, what we're looking at, not good.
The teams that are scheduling really hard with the multiple Power 5 conference teams on their schedule each year, they're scheduling as if there's an expanded playoff coming of 12 teams where it's easier to get in and where you won't be punished by losses as much. And I don't think Tennessee's schedule reflects that type of thinking. They need to beef it up.
So they're going to stay at 4, according to Tennessee. They're not going to expand.
Tennessee's schedule reflects the number 6.
Getting to 6
Get to
wins.
a bowl game.
I do think
sorry.
you're scheduling your way to. You're putting some likely wins on there is what you're doing, which everybody has a couple. But when you don't even have a really strong fourth anymore. You don't have the one.
Right.
The one good one used to be good. I mean, BYU and Pitt were steps down. You got bad luck. They didn't line up Pitt when Pitt was winning the ACC. That was bad luck, and I'm sure if it weren't the Johnny Majors Classic, they may be looking, well, we could get more fans in Nashville than we can in Pennsylvania, so we're going to play Von Orr High School in
Bring
Nashville.
back Georgia Tech.
It'd be more interesting than Syracuse.
Yeah, and sometimes I don't buy this. Well, they played a Power 5 school. Well, that Power 5 school may go 1-11.
Yeah.
What Power 5 school did you play? Not just that you played one, who was it?
Yeah.
All right, when we come back, do Tennessee fans want to travel? We saw a lot of schools are scheduling like they want to travel. They want to reward fans, and Tennessee fans used to do that. Used to like going to Oregon and Oklahoma just recently. But Danny White's statement made it sound like, well, fans aren't going to go to Utah. We can get more in Nevada and in Nashville. Do Tennessee fans still want to travel? We'll discuss that next. Come on back.